Marcus Chen was winning the money game until his neighbor bought a Tesla. For 3 years, Marcus had been the model of financial responsibility. He drove a reliable 2018 Honda Civic, lived in a modest apartment, and religiously invested 20% of his $85,000 salary. His retirement account was growing steadily, his emergency fund was solid, and he was on track to achieve financial independence by age 45. Then, Jake moved in next door. Jake was the same age as Marcus, worked a similar job, but drove a gleaming white Tesla Model S. Designer clothes, latest iPhone, expensive watch, weekend trips to Napa Valley that he documented extensively on Instagram, high-end restaurants, luxury experiences, a lifestyle that screamed success from every carefully curated social media post. How does he afford all that? Marcus wondered, scrolling through Jake's vacation photos while eating leftover pasta in his basic kitchen. The question seemed innocent enough, born of genuine curiosity rather than envy. That question, innocent enough on the surface, was about to trigger the most expensive psychological trap in personal finance: the need to keep up with people who are probably going broke trying to impress you. Within 18 months, Marcus's obsession with matching Jake's lifestyle cost him $127,000 in retirement savings and trapped him in a cycle of status spending that would delay his retirement by nearly 15 years. His carefully constructed financial plan, built over years of disciplined saving and smart investing, crumbled under the weight of social comparison and status anxiety. This is the story of how social pressure and status obsession destroy more retirement dreams than market crashes, job losses, and medical emergencies combined. It started innocently enough. Marcus began noticing things about his life that had never bothered him before. His Honda Civic, which had always been perfectly adequate transportation, suddenly felt embarrassing when parked next to Jake's Tesla. The reliable car that had served him well for 5 years now seemed like a statement of mediocrity. His apartment, which he'd been proud to afford on his own, felt cramped and outdated when Jake posted videos of his modern downtown loft with floor-to-ceiling windows and sleek furnishings. The space that had once represented independence and financial responsibility now felt like a compromise. "I work just as hard as he does," Marcus rationalized, staring at his reflection in his bathroom mirror. "I have the same education, the same job level. Why shouldn't I have nice things too?" The first purchase was practical, a newer car. Marcus convinced himself that his Honda was becoming unreliable, though it had never given him problems. He told himself that he needed something more professional for work, though his job required no client visits or business travel. He researched extensively, comparing safety ratings and fuel efficiency, building a case for the upgrade. He traded in his paid-off Civic and financed a $45,000 BMW 3 Series. The monthly payment was $637. The total cost over 5 years would be $52,220. If that same money had been invested in his index funds at 8% annual return, it would have grown to $73,500. But Marcus didn't calculate opportunity costs. He calculated monthly payments. The BMW was just the beginning. Once Marcus broke his own carefully constructed spending rules for the car, every other upgrade became easier to justify. The psychological barrier between need and want had been breached, and the floodgates were open. The apartment upgrade came next. Marcus's lease was up for renewal, and instead of signing another year at his affordable $1,800 monthly rent, he found himself scrolling through luxury apartment listings. The studios and one-bedrooms that had seemed perfectly adequate 6 months ago now felt beneath his newfound image. "I'm an investment in my social life," Marcus told himself as he signed a lease for a luxury complex closer to downtown. The rent was $2,950 monthly, an increase of $1,150. The annual increase was $13,800. Over 5 years, this single decision would cost him $69,000 in additional housing costs. But Marcus focused on the amenities: the rooftop pool, the gym, the concierge service, the prestigious address. These felt like investments in his personal brand. The wardrobe revolution followed naturally. Working in his expensive apartment and driving his luxury car made Marcus hyper-aware of his Target and H&M clothing. The shirts and pants that had seemed perfectly professional now felt cheap and obvious. He began shopping at higher-end stores, justifying each purchase as a professional investment or confidence building. A $150 shirt became normal. $300 shoes seemed reasonable. An $800 suit felt like a necessity. Marcus's clothing budget increased from $100 monthly to $400 monthly. He told himself that quality pieces lasted longer, that he was actually saving money by buying better items. The mathematics of cost per wear became his new justification system. The tech addiction accelerated rapidly. Jake always had the latest gadgets, and Marcus found himself upgrading his phone, laptop, watch, and headphones far more frequently than necessary. The annual phone upgrade became a given. The laptop replacement cycles shortened from 5 years to 2. Smart home devices multiplied throughout his apartment. Annual tech upgrades that had previously cost him $800 now averaged $3,200. But each purchase felt justified. The new phone had a better camera for the lifestyle photos he was now posting. The laptop upgrade was necessary for productivity. The smartwatch helped him optimize his health and fitness. The social spending explosion was perhaps the most dramatic change. Keeping up with Jake's social life meant expensive restaurants where entrees started at $35. Craft cocktail bars where drinks cost $18. Weekend trips to ski resorts, wine country, and beach destinations that required flights, hotels, and rental cars. Marcus's entertainment budget, which had been a modest $200 monthly for movies, books, and occasional dinners out, ballooned to $800 monthly. The shift was gradual but relentless. Coffee dates became wine tastings, home-cooked dinners became restaurant reservations, local hiking became destination travel. The total lifestyle inflation was staggering, $230,250 over 5 years. But the increases felt manageable when spread across monthly payments and gradual upgrades. Marcus never sat down and calculated the total cost of his new lifestyle. He simply adjusted to each new expense level as it became his new normal. The real financial devastation wasn't just the increased spending, it was what Marcus had to sacrifice to afford his new lifestyle. Before his neighbor moved in, Marcus's financial picture had been a model of responsibility and long-term thinking. His monthly budget had been carefully constructed. Salary $85,000 annually, or $7,083 monthly after taxes. Living expenses $4,200 monthly. Retirement contributions $17,000 annually, or 20% of gross income. Emergency fund contributions $500 monthly. Discretionary spending $800 monthly. This budget allowed Marcus to live comfortably while building substantial wealth. His retirement account was growing by $17,000 annually in contributions alone, plus compound growth on existing investments. His emergency fund was fully funded at 6 months of expenses. He had money left over for travel, hobbies, and spontaneous purchases. After the lifestyle upgrade, the numbers told a different story. Same salary, $85,000 annually. New living expenses, $7,150 monthly. Retirement contributions, $3,000 annually, or 3.5% of gross income. Emergency fund depleted to cover moving costs and initial furniture purchases. Discretionary spending entirely eliminated. Marcus had reduced his retirement savings from $17,000 to $3,000 annually, a decrease of $14,000 per year in wealth building. The psychological impact was even worse than the financial impact. Marcus now felt stressed about money despite earning the same salary. Bills that once had been automatic now required careful timing. The financial breathing room that had given him confidence and security had evaporated. The compound effect over 20 years was devastating. Original savings trajectory $1.2 million by age 52. New savings trajectory $214,000 by age 52. Lost retirement wealth $986,000. Marcus's obsession with impressing his neighbor was costing him nearly $1 million in retirement security. The man who had been on track for early retirement was now looking at working into his late 60s just to achieve basic financial stability. What Marcus didn't understand was that he'd fallen into one of the most powerful psychological traps in personal finance: social comparison theory. Humans are hardwired to evaluate their success relative to others, not in absolute terms. Marcus's life hadn't become objectively worse when Jake moved in, but it felt worse because he now had a new comparison point. The trap works through several mechanisms. Reference group shift. Marcus unconsciously changed his reference group from responsible savers to high spenders. Instead of comparing himself to financially responsible peers, he began measuring his lifestyle against someone living beyond their means. Status anxiety. Fear of being perceived as less successful drove increasingly irrational spending decisions. Marcus began making purchases not for personal satisfaction, but to avoid the imagined judgment of others. Lifestyle creep. Each upgrade became the new normal, requiring progressively bigger upgrades to achieve the same psychological satisfaction. The $150 shirt that had thrilled him in month 1 felt ordinary by month 6. Present bias. Immediate status felt more important than distant retirement goals. The abstract concept of financial independence couldn't compete with the concrete pleasure of driving a luxury car today. The deadly irony was that Marcus was trying to appear wealthy by spending money he didn't have on things he didn't need, while actually destroying his path to real wealth. He was choosing the appearance of success over actual financial success. Social media amplified Marcus's status anxiety to dangerous levels. Jake's Instagram was a carefully curated showcase of enviable experiences: first-class flights to exotic destinations, expensive dinners at trendy restaurants with perfectly plated food, designer clothing and accessories, high-end experiences, and events with beautiful people. What the Instagram post showed was a lifestyle that seemed effortlessly luxurious. Jake appeared to navigate expensive restaurants with casual confidence, travel to destinations that Marcus had only dreamed of visiting, or clothing brands that represented sophistication and success. Every post reinforced the message that this was how successful people lived, that this was how people with good jobs and bright futures lived their lives. What Marcus didn't see, what social media never shows, was the financial stress behind Jake's curated lifestyle. The credit card statements arriving monthly with minimum payment reminders, the late night anxiety about mounting debt balances, the careful timing of payments to avoid overdraft fees, the constant calculation of available credit before making purchases. Jake's hidden financial reality was devastating. Credit card debt, $47,000 across 6 different cards. Car loan, $87,000 for the Tesla at 12% interest. Personal loan, $15,000 borrowed for his European vacation. Retirement savings, $8,200 total across all accounts. Monthly debt payments, $2,340 before living expenses. Financial stress level, constant and overwhelming. Jake wasn't wealthy. He was broke with excellent credit scores that enabled him to continue borrowing. His lifestyle was financed entirely through debt, making him appear successful while actually being financially desperate. He was living in a house of cards that could collapse with any financial setback. But Marcus only saw the surface, and the surface was intoxicating. Each Instagram story reinforced the message that this was what success looked like, that this was how people with good jobs and bright futures lived their lives. Marcus began calculating the real cost of his status obsession, and the numbers were more devastating than he had imagined. Every purchase that felt reasonable in isolation added up to a financial catastrophe when viewed collectively. The BMW decision provided a perfect case study in status spending destruction. Monthly payment $637. Insurance increase $180 monthly. Luxury cars cost more to insure. Maintenance costs $200 monthly. BMW maintenance is expensive. Registration and taxes $150 monthly. Luxury car fees. Total monthly cost $1,167. If Marcus had kept his paid off Honda Civic and invested that $1,167 monthly for 5 years at 8% annual return, he would have accumulated $86,400 in investment growth, plus $70,020 in contributions, totaling $156,420. Instead, he spent $70,020 over 5 years and owned a depreciating asset worth approximately $22,000. The net difference was $134,420. One status purchase, justified as practical transportation, had cost Marcus over $134,000 in net worth. But the BMW was just one component of his status spending. The apartment upgrade provided an even starker example. Emotional justifications Marcus used to justify expensive housing. I deserve a nice place after working hard for years. The location will help my career prospects. I'll be happier in a better environment. At the end of the day, it's still within my budget if I cut back elsewhere. The mathematical reality: extra rent $1,150 monthly, moving costs $3,500, new furniture to fit the space $12,000, utility increases $80 monthly, parking fees $150 monthly, total first year cost $29,300. That $29,300 invested annually for 20 years at 8% return would become $1.34 million. Marcus had traded $1.34 million in retirement wealth for a slightly nicer apartment that he couldn't actually afford. Marcus's spending spiral accelerated when he started socializing with Jake's friend group. These were young professionals who had normalized expensive lifestyle choices, creating a social environment where financial irresponsibility was not just accepted, but celebrated. Group activities that became normal included $200 dinners at trendy restaurants where sharing small plates somehow cost more than individual entrees elsewhere. $150 cocktail nights downtown, where craft drinks justified premium prices. $500 weekend trips to ski resorts that required expensive gear and lodge accommodations. $80 fitness classes at boutique studios with cult like followings. $300 concert and event tickets for exclusive experiences. Everyone does this became Marcus's standard justification for spending that would have horrified him 2 years ago. But everyone in Marcus's new peer group was financially irresponsible. He'd inadvertently joined a social circle that celebrated consumption over accumulation, immediate gratification over long-term planning. The group dynamics reinforced poor financial decisions through several mechanisms. Social proof: when everyone around you normalizes expensive choices, those choices begin to feel normal and reasonable. Fear of missing out amplification. Fear of missing out on group experiences created pressure to participate regardless of financial cost. Status competition. Subtle one-upmanship in restaurant choices, vacation destinations, and lifestyle accessories created an arms race of spending. Financial denial. The group culture actively discouraged discussions of money, debt, or financial stress, making it impossible to recognize that most members were financially struggling. Travel spending became Marcus's most expensive category of status signaling. His pre-Jake travel budget was $2,000 annually for practical trips to visit family and occasional local getaways. His post-Jake travel spending exploded to $12,000 annually for Instagram-worthy experiences. Marcus began choosing destinations based on how they would look on social media rather than personal interest or financial prudence. Expensive resort in Tulum, $4,200 for 5 days, including flights, resort fees, and activities. Wine tasting weekend in Sonoma, $1,800 for 2 days, including hotel, tastings, and meals. European Christmas market tour, $6,000 for 10 days, including flights, hotels, and guided experiences. Every trip was documented extensively on Instagram, generating likes and comments that provided temporary validation but permanent debt. Marcus found himself spending hours researching photo-worthy restaurants and locations, planning his itinerary around social media opportunities rather than personal interests. Marcus developed increasingly creative justifications for his status spending. Each purchase was accompanied by elaborate mental gymnastics that transformed wants into needs and luxuries into investments. It's an investment in my career became the justification for expensive clothing, networking events, and lifestyle accessories that supposedly projected professional competence. I work hard, I deserve this, transformed every expensive purchase into a reward for professional achievement, making financial responsibility seem like self-punishment. The quality is better, so it's actually saving money. Rationalized expensive purchases through creative cost per use calculations that ignored opportunity costs. This will make me more confident. Turned status purchases into mental health investments, making frugality seem like self sabotage. Everyone at my level has one of these, made expensive purchases seem professionally necessary rather than personally desired. I can afford the payments, focused attention on monthly cash flow while ignoring total cost and opportunity cost. Each rationalization felt logical in the moment, but ignored the massive opportunity costs accumulating. Marcus was becoming a master of financial deception, crafting elaborate stories that justified decisions his rational mind knew were financially destructive. After 3 years of status spending, Marcus finally sat down to calculate the total financial damage. The numbers were more devastating than he had imagined. Direct costs of status lifestyle. Extra housing, $41,400 over 3 years. Luxury car payments and costs, $38,244. Status wardrobe upgrades, $21,300. Premium travel experiences, $30,000. Expensive hobbies and equipment, $18,500. Fitness status signaling, $8,400. Social and dating pressure spending, $24,300. Technology upgrades and gadgets, $9,600. Total direct costs, $191,744. Opportunity costs, lost investment returns, reduced retirement contributions, $42,000 in lost contributions, lost compound growth on missed investments, $68,500, lost employer 401k matching, $12,750. Total opportunity costs, $123,250. 3 years of status obsession had cost Marcus over $314,000 in net worth.